What a perfect segue as the filly beats the boys. Perfect time to look back on memory lane of Rachel Alexandra's Preakness victory. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pimlico Racecourse. Happy Black-Eyed Susan Day on this fantastic Preakness weekend. I am Acacia Courtney. I'll be your host this morning because today is all about the girls, and we have a fantastic panel assembled for you today. I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, Gabby Gaudette, Ashley Mayu, and Kaiten Bradar. And again, we will be going through the entire Friday card today, as well as our Preakness picks. But again, today's all about the girls, and we're very excited to have the chance to be handicapping today's card. Just a couple reminders. First post today is 11:30 a.m. We have guaranteed pools in the pick 5 starting in race 7, the pick 4 starting in race 8, and the pick 4 starting in race 11. That kicks off with the Black-Eyed Susan a little bit later on today. Those are all $300,000 a piece, and we're going to try to make you some money. Ladies, welcome to Pimlico, and we're going to start with our Preakness Stakes picks. We're just going to go down the line a little bit, and I know all of you pretty familiar with Maryland racing, and we're thrilled to have you here today. Gabby, welcome back home.
Thank you. It's awesome to come back. I haven't been back to Pimlico since last year, so it's been a lot of fun to come back and obviously see a lot of familiar faces and catch up with people, and I'm really excited for this rendition of the Preakness Stakes. You know, unfortunate that we don't get the Derby unofficial or official winners, but I thought that this was one of the most competitive renditions of the Preakness Stakes that we've seen in quite some time. Should I dive into the Preakness?
Go ahead.
Give my picks? Okay. Well, me and everybody else, I feel like in America, has landed on Always Mining. I just love the fact that this horse is coming into the race with confidence builders. I mean, he definitely didn't face much last time out in the Federico Tessio, but I did think it was a learning experience in that he showed that he could effectively rate from off of the pace. He dominated and demolished the field. And I think when you're talking about class, it doesn't weigh as heavy when you're beating a field by, say, 12 lengths. Or 11 and a half lengths in which he won. I had the opportunity to go up to Fair Hill a couple days ago and see him train, and he's training like an absolute monster. So not only do I think this horse is incredibly talented, I also think he's going to fit the flow of the race, sitting behind the pace, and there's a lot of amazing storylines with this horse behind him too, considering Kelly Rubley would potentially be the first female trainer to win the Preakness, but also the Bentleys. There are a lot of storylines behind this horse, including the fact that he's a Maryland bred.
He is. He would be the first Maryland bred to win the Preakness since the 1980s, and you're absolutely right with the storylines. I think the breeder is great too, Poppet Pitts, and she only has a couple of mares in her barn, so some fantastic storylines there with Always Mining. Ashley, you like to pick some prices, and welcome to joining the team, Ashley's first Preakness experience with us. What do you got for us?
I also went with Always Mining. I just love the way this horse has, won his last 6 in a row. And like Gabby said, he's been very confident. He seems to get even better with each start. And one thing I really like is the connections were considering running him in the Kentucky Derby, but they opted for this spot. So I feel like they have a lot of confidence going into this race.
Okay, so we have 2 votes for Always Mining. Kaiten, are you keeping the trend going?
Well, we did not cheat with each other before we came to the seminar. I want to be clear. I think that this is, in terms of pace, a very similar race to what we saw in the Kentucky Derby, even though you'll hear a lot about there being more speed in the Preakness Stakes. I don't know that that's necessarily true, because if you look at the best style for these horses, and you look what's happened with War of Will down on the inside, or you look at even Bodie Express toward the outside, those horses have natural speed, but they did not make the lead, and I don't think if they're gunned out of the gate that they're able to put in their best run. So I don't look for those horses to necessarily be pressing the pace. They'll be close up, but I think that puts Always Mining in the catbird seat. So that, combined with the way he's looked and continued to flourish, he looks like he's just beginning to develop and reach his best stride. Make him the pick for me. I will say War of Will is very intriguing. If he can overcome that inside post position, I think of all the horses coming out of the Kentucky Derby, he's going to be the one that perhaps gives the best test to the new shooters because he continues to thrive and just looks tremendous coming into the race, and hopefully more settled than the Derby.
Yeah, absolutely. He's really, I think, trained in the mornings really impressively. I like Always Mining as well, but I'm going with a big price in here, so I'm going to be the outlier. I'm taking the number 2 Bourbon War on top, and I had a chance to kind of follow this horse throughout his campaign in South Florida, and they wanted to run him in the Kentucky Derby. Unfortunately, he did not end up with enough points. He finished 4th in the Florida Derby last time out, and he was definitely, I think, pace compromised in there. Maximum Security and Bodie Express went 1-2 around the track. It's important to note that the Fountain of Youth was the first finish line race going a mile and a 16th at Gulfstream, so he was not really able to get his strongest late kick because they were hitting the first finish line. He kind of ran out of real estate. So they are adding shortcut blinkers for the first time tomorrow. Mark Hennig telling me it was just really to get him into the bridle a little bit more, not necessarily to have him show any more speed, but just to have him have a little bit more focus and hopefully not be left with too much to do. But definitely using Always Mining, War of Will as well. We didn't mention the favorite. Ladies, let's just go through quickly. If anybody has any big prices or any opinions, keep or toss Improbable in the Preakness Stakes.
I think that Improbable is vulnerable. I don't think, and I think, Caton, you mentioned this on TVG yesterday, that Bob Baffert would probably admit that himself. But, you know, I don't know if it would be the right thing to completely toss him, because I think he's definitely capable and he is the worthy favorite in my opinion. He's running, fast enough races in order to win. He ran second behind Omaha Beach, who I thought was truly going to win the Kentucky Derby. It was very unfortunate that he had a scratch. So I would use him. I don't have a very strong opinion to go against him. I just like other horses in here. And the only other horse that I wanted to kind of mention is Owendale. I really did go back and forth between Always Mining and Owendale, and I think it's going to come down to which offers the better price, because considering talking to everybody, Always Mining, it seems like a lot of people like him, and I think you'll get a better price on Owendale. I thought he ran a really, really good race in the Lexington. He was wide. He beat another Twist of Fate, who I think is good. And I thought he beat him fair and square. So Owendale's kind of like my other horse in the Preakness. And especially if, the biggest question is the pace scenario, whether or not it's going to be a hot pace or if it's going to be a moderate pace and someone steals it on the front end. I think when you answer that question, the race becomes a little bit clearer.
I'm going to jump in. I echo Gabby's sentiments about, I like both Brad Cox's horses as price plays, but I'm going to take a stand with Improbable off of, I thought, a pretty tough campaign and toss him.
The only other price, I think, at 6-1 morning line, we might get a little higher, is another Twist of Fate just behind Owendale last time out. The thing I liked is this horse, he has one on the front end in his 3 wins, but he has been able to rate. So depending if anyone tries to hook up with Always Mining, which looks like it will happen, he might have a nice stretch run here.
Okay, so those are our picks for the Preakness Stakes. We'll hopefully see if we can make you some money tomorrow. Again, at Preakness Stakes, going to be tomorrow afternoon, our first post 10:30. But we do have a fantastic card of racing today, so we'll dive into that very quickly. The first 4 races we'll go through a little bit quicker so that we can spend adequate time on all of the stakes races that we have this afternoon. Race number 1 today is a 6 furlong maiden claiming event for $10,000. Going 6 furlongs on the main track for the fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. Caton, take it away.
Age has its privileges, among them glasses and paper. But I think I'm the outlier in this race with the 8, Ives being my top pick. He adds blinkers. I think that, combined with the drop, are going to put him in a very good position here and a little bit closer to the pace, having a little bit easier time of it. He's also shortening up off of that maiden 25,000 that I thought was a particularly tough race. And though he was well beaten in it, I think he's at a level where he can be much more competitive and have an easier time of it up front. So I'm going to use him, but I know that that the consensus is with some of the other horses, including, I think, the 7 Cyclical, who I'm certainly not throwing out of the mix. Cyclical is a horse that I respect. Turf to Dirt drops in class as well, and a bigger class drop for that matter.
Significant class drop there. We also have the speed of the 2 Midnight Mass also getting a class drop, and there's everybody's top picks for race number 1. As we move on to race 2, this one hits the turf. We had sprint races off the turf yesterday, but the turf looked like it was really drying out beautifully. Should be in fantastic condition this afternoon. Mile and a 16th on the grass for this starter optional claiming. Ashley, what do you have for us in the second?
I went with the price on top at 6-1 morning line. This is Boundary Pass for Kelly Rubley. I really liked the race last time out, finished third, and had a very nice stretch run. You know, I think the distance we see the horse has won and broke the maiden quite impressively down at Tampa, and horse seems to be training well. So I'll take 6-1 on this horse.
Getting some nice prices in there. We all give some attention to the Great Britain horse family tree. Number 8, Caton taking the 9, Rumson Rally, moving into the barn of Lacey Gaudette. As we go on to race number 3, maiden special weight for the fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upwards, 6 furlongs on the main track. Gabby taking number 5 here.
I did, and she is, 7-2 on the morning line, so she is the second choice beyond Rockstar Girl, the outside runner. Trapped in my mind, I just really like the competition that she's been facing at the maiden level. I mean, she faced Stakes Company last time out when Jessie Cruz did stretch her out to a distance of ground against Las Cetas, who we will be seeing in the Black Eyed Susan. We'll also be seeing our Super Freak in the Black Eyed Susan, who she ran against as a 2-year-old 3 starts back at Delaware. So I just think for the level, those races have actually come up really competitive. So I'll give her the slight preference, and I like that Ricardo Santana is in the irons there. I'm also going to be using the 6 Tobago for Graham Motion. I think she's got a very sneaky look at 10-1 because she got bet in her debut at 4-1. She gets LASIK. She turns back in distance. They bought her for $425,000 or $425,000 at the Keeneland September sale. So, I just thought that she had kind of a sneaky look being by Pioneer of the Nile, and she showcases a really nice pedigree.
And she's half to a grade 1 place horse named Beautician, so I'm right there with you. Definitely a wide open, fun race 3 as we look to race number 4, going 5 furlongs on the turf. Maiden claiming event for the 3-year-olds and upward. I do think that this is one where you could find some prices as well. I took a price with a little bit of a speed play with the 5 Ready to Run for Susan Cooney, who did win actually a race yesterday, or had a horse that ran very well yesterday here at Pimlico. This one's coming off the layoff, but I thought that first couple of races on the turf were very strong. You'll get some, again, nice prices in this race. Gabby likes the 7, Rising Perry trying the turf for the first time, and Caton and Ashley to the outside taking the 1 turning back in distance for Mike Stidham, and the 9 Time Flies By, which it certainly is. Can't believe it's Preakness already. As we turn to race 5, 6 furlong on the main track, allowance race for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. And we're a little bit all over the place, but I'm going to turn it over to Caton and Ashley, who are going to analyze this race for us.
Yeah, and Ashley, I think you and I looked at it similarly, but then took a very different approach as far as our picks were concerned. I went with Final Form as the speed of the speed. I know there's a lot of pace in this race, but I just thought the filly, coming off 2 straight wins, had gotten her confidence, and now it's just getting bigger and stronger each time she runs. For Jeremiah Engelhardt, she does step up in company, but I think on the inside might get the jump on the competition and continue on. For Trevor McCarthy, I thought the 7 Olive Cat was an interesting price play. She just missed last time, and she might actually, if she can take that last race and learn something from it mentally in terms of settling, be the best suited as far as her style is concerned. I do want to see off the layoff her relax, though, as she did last time, to be able to get there. And then Majestic Reason, another one who can stalk. If that pace collapses, if my top pick there with the speed isn't there, then I thought those 2 were horses at prices that could be in a good spot. How did you see it?
I definitely agree with the top spot. Final Form has just been crushing the fields at Parks and at Gulfstream, and I think, the step up in class, he's taking one, but I think it should be fine against this field. Then I actually went to the horse on the outside, this 3-year-old filly for Todd Pletcher, Disclude. Little interesting, had a really tough special weight down at Aqueduct, ran nicely, but we haven't seen this one in over a year, which is a little bit concerning for me, but Todd has success with this angle. And the workouts have been steady enough for me to think that this one can run today. Then I turned to the 4, 7-2 morning line, Majestic Reason. This horse has been facing Stakes Company and has been facing some nice horses. I just had to use this one. It seems like it definitely could be part of the trifecta. Then my price horse is Lacey Gaudette's horse, the 6, 3 Hawk. The most recent race was impressive at Laurel, did widen in the end of it and won by just under 4 lengths. Second start since January. That's some angle that I really appreciate and like. And I like the price at 6-1. I think this one might even float up a little bit.
You can see that we're kind of consensus of opinion, if not necessarily in the top picks, but with those horses hitting all of our tickets. We move to the 6th race. Gabby, you and I took a stab at this one. As far as turf was concerned, I'm a little eager to see how the turf plays. Yesterday, and even overnight, we had just a little bit of rain. It was listed good for the 2 turf races we saw. They were a little lesser quality than I think what we've got on today's card. So I don't know if we can use any of the information from yesterday to figure how it's going to play here. But how did you see, were you factoring in for a firm turf course here, and how did you see the 6th race?
I actually went out to the turf course yesterday and got to walk it a little bit. Unfortunately, I had block heels on my high heels and not stilettos, so I don't really know how soft it was. But the grass is long, and it looks really, really good out there. So I would imagine we're going to have decent, turf conditions today. So I really handicapped for that, just thinking that it would be maybe good to firm or closer to firm. And I couldn't get past Largent. I mean, I know he's 5-2 on the morning line, and he didn't get bet in his debut. I don't know how this horse went off at 8-1 and won by almost 5 for Todd Pletcher, first time out, and a maiden special weight. But, that race has seemingly been very productive since then. We've seen Big Torch Key come out of that, and he won a maiden special weight at Keeneland. We also saw the 4th place finisher come back out. I believe it was a Chad Brown horse and went up at Belmont. He got an 84 Beyer speed figure, so he significantly improved out of that race. So just from kind of top to bottom, it looked like a really strong race, and I like the speed. I mean, Caton, I really didn't see any other horse capable of running with him early, did you?
No, I didn't, and I thought that's what tipped the scale over Sindaris, who I like a lot. The 3 draws a nice post position, I think, to sit a really ideal trip, just beating a neck last time out, but I think that Largent is going to get the jump on the competition.
Okay, I got to mention a long shot here, though. I don't know where I picked this horse 3rd. It's not Preakness weekend unless I pick a long shot for Hammy Smith. So the 9 makes most sense. I really do like him in here. He's by Uncle Mo, and you obviously see his turf performance last time out. But I just thought, he had kind of a sneaky look, Alex Cintron in the irons. I think he can improve off of his last race with the blinkers on. And, I don't think he'll get a lot of pace in front of him, but Hammy Smith.
Absolutely. We love to see Hammy Smith and a lot of the local Maryland trainers, and especially it seems like big days, Hammy has a knack for coming home with some prices. We look now to our first stake on the day. It's the Ski Pat in race number 7, 6 furlongs on the main track for fillies and mares, and Ashley and I are going to tackle this race. And this does start the pick 5 with $300,000 guaranteed, so you get a chance to start in a stakes race. Not too bad at all. Huge guaranteed pools there, and we'll have guarantees on Saturday as well. And the starting point here, Ashley, as we bring up her replay, is definitely the number 3 Chalon for trainer Arnaud Delacour. We're going to look back at the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Of course, that was back in November. She was beaten just by a head that day, if we could get that replay rolling. That was going 7 furlongs. She hasn't raced since then. Ashley, what did you make of this performance from her?
I mean, this was very incredible. She just loses by a head and was so game in the stretch. She has had time off, but she has had this thing happen before, and with that, I think she'll be fine against this group. She does look like the class of the field.
She certainly does look like the class of the field. I got a chance to speak to trainer Arnaud Delacour at Fair Hill the other day, and he said she's run well fresh in the past, and the big thing for her is that she's coming back at 6 furlongs, and you can see it was definitely a blanket finish there in the Breeders' Cup. Definitely a heartbreaker, won by Shamrock Rose. It is the Breeders' Cup, so you're expecting top quality, but 4 horses have come out of that race to win the next time out. Some really just top quality company that she's kept, and Arnaud's saying he really does prefer that she's coming back at 6 furlongs versus the 7 furlongs that she faced last time out. All of us except Caton, and who ends up on the 9, Estilo Femenino, ended up on Chalon. Ashley, who else did you like in this field?
I really liked Anna's Bandit. When I was at Laurel for the Winter Carnival, I saw this horse work out, and I thought the workout was incredible. She was very forward, ears pricked, everything you'd want to see a horse doing in the mornings on the track. And then since then, she has won 2 races. I just like how she wins with widening margins, and she's probably the best of the Maryland horses, in my opinion, in this race.
Can I point out that when we made the the selections, it was prior to the scratch of Adios Annie,
Yes.
who I really felt was one of the main horses who could put some pressure on. I didn't feel that she was a win candidate, but I did think she could compromise Shalon's chances. I'm still going to stick with the Stilio Femenino, but I think that was a key scratch in the way this race plays out as far as the pace is concerned.
Definitely a good point there. It looks like Adios Annie was going to be the one to push. Everlasting Secret has some speed, but I don't think she's as fast early, and I can't really see her going. And it looks like Shalon's been training. I mean, to have a minute flat work for 5 furlongs up at Fair Hill is very quick. Sometimes you will see a little bit slower works up there. Ashley, looking at a couple of others, probably have to mention the 7, Maybe Wicked. Could be a big weekend for Brad Cox. He knows how to spot horses as well.
The horse loves this distance, and you know, it hasn't raced in some time as well. We keep on talking about these layoffs, but the horse has been training well at Churchill. I really like the times on those workouts. 5-1, you know, you'll get a better price on this than other horses in here.
Maybe get some value, as we do have to expect that the number 3 Shalon will be the overwhelming favorite, but definitely a fun rendition of our first stake on the day as we move to our first graded stake. And Kate and you and I have this one here, race number 8, 6 furlongs on the main track for the Adena Springs Miss Preakness, a grade 3 event. A couple of scratches in here, Miss Imperial, Sue's Fortune, and Iva to the Rail. How did you see this race? And again, this does start the pick 4 guarantee, $300,000.
You know, this was a really fun race from the standpoint of some fillies that showed an awful lot of talent and ability early on, and among them Kofifi, who is toward the inside, and then Fighting Mad, who's toward the outside for Bob Baffert. Fighting Mad comes off actually 2 straight wins, one at Del Mar when she broke her maiden over the summer, and then came back off a lengthy layoff to win at Churchill Downs. And I gave the edge to Fighting Mad over Kofifi just because of positioning, I think, more than anything else. I believe these are both talented fillies and probably pretty equal. And if you flip their positions in the gate, I think I might have flipped my top choice here, but I think Fighting Mad has that advantage with perspective to the outside. She also doesn't have to be on the lead, and I think she's naturally going to find herself pretty close and in that mix early on. Kofifi is still figuring it out. She still runs a little bit greenly, but she has tremendous amount of talent, and she got out of the gate a little bit awkwardly in her last start at Keeneland, going 6.5 furlongs, and then rushed up to take the lead. And I thought kind of there was an opportunity for her to get beat, and she never gave in. She actually seemed to thrive on the competition. So this is going to be a fun race to watch, but I'm going to go with Fighting Mad, which might be the hunch play when you think of Gary and Mary West being the owners of Maximum Security.
Absolutely. I think that's the hunch bet for sure. We'll get to my top pick in a second, but you mentioned about the post positions and how important that is. I don't know how much time you got to watch yesterday, how things were playing out. It seemed like closers were really having a great time here at Pimlico.
They did, and it seemed like the outside was kind of where you wanted to be. If you could get position off the turn, you could come from actually quite far back, even at the sprint distances. So I do think that plays, if it holds true again today. Exactly. But sometimes with the weather conditions, especially these warmer temperatures, things can change quickly.
Absolutely can. So we'll keep an eye on that for you in the first few races as well. I took a bit of a price in here with a filly that actually is undefeated as we bring up the replay from Laurel Park on April 14th for Never Enough Time, who did win her second race out. And talk about finishing up greenly, Kate, and she certainly did this here. You can see she's still really figuring it out, what are lead changes. And I spoke to Mike Trombetta the other day, and he said he really didn't want to run her 7 furlongs, but this was the race that came up. He much prefers her going 3/4 of a mile, and he thought that she just kind of got out by herself and was a little bit distracted, kind of saying, what do I do now? At this level, Kate, and when you have horses that are still figuring it out, you mentioned that immaturity thing. How do you play that into your handicapping?
You know, I actually like it. If a horse is winning and they're not doing everything right, I think that's a huge plus, because if they do start to do everything right, there's no telling how good they'll be. So I took a good hard look at her, and when you're undefeated in 2 starts, I think as the stakes get higher, if you can up your game each time, that's really saying something. I just worried she's going to get trapped in the middle of the field here as far as position is concerned. I did have a price. I think she'll be a price. The 12 Midnight Fantasy, who I think has a shot here, again, outside post position. She's also adding blinkers, and I think that could be a real key for her off a 5-length win. It's not often that you see trainers make equipment changes off victories. So to me, she still lacked a little focus, or there was something that the trainer was trying to fine-tune and get more out of. Joe Sharp bringing her off that stakes win at Mahoning Valley, kind of testing deeper waters here. But I think she could get a share of it for sure.
Get some nice prices in there. Ashley and Gabby both taking the number 2 Kofafi for trainer Brad Cox. As we continue on race number 9, we stick with the stakes action. It's the Hilltop going 1 mile on the turf for the 3-year-old fillies. Gabby, you and I have this one, and what a surprise on the turf. Chad Brown comes with a strong 1-2 punch.
Yeah, exactly. Surprise, surprise. One of them being Nova Soul to the inside. She's making her stateside debut, and then also Dog Tag, who I think will get a lot of attention primarily because she ran in the Miss Grillo as a 2-year-old going against Newspaper of Record, who, at one point in time, Chad was saying it's the best horse in the barn. Unfortunately, she lost in the Edgewood coming off of the shelf on Derby weekend. But I went against both of them here, and I actually landed on Fashion Faux Pas for Arnaud Delacour. You look at a race 2 starts back in the Forward Gal, and that's when she started to get, they wanted to give her a little bit more distance, and they stretched her out to 7/8. And she did not fire. I don't know what happened that day, but she always looked like she was kind of pushed along. She never really looked comfortable. She faded, and she finished dead last in that race. Sometimes, and Kate and I talk about this all the time too, Gulfstream can be a really difficult track to ship into on the dirt. I'm not talking about the turf, but on the dirt, especially kind of for those fast sprint fillies who, she was stretching out off of a layoff to 7/8. It can be kind of a tiring surface. So, I thought that she had excuses in there. She sprinted on the turf last time out, a good race off of the freshening. I found an interesting stat for Arnaud Delacour just in general with his turf horses stretching out from sprints to routes. He hits at 31%, and it's an ROI of over $3. So he does this, and he does this well. He does this well in stakes races, and sometimes it's a logical way of thinking, but in fact, fillies or horses can relax and harness their speed on the front end when they stretch out versus, always being asked in sprint distances.
And I think it's good that she has the experience already of a turf race and running really well last time out. And it's important to note that sprinting at Gulfstream is much different than the 6 furlongs at Aqueduct too. It's just a much different layout than what she was doing prior. So I kept looking back at her as well. I ended up using her 4th. I also picked against the 2 Chad Brown runners with the number 6 Make Me Dream. And this is a filly that I think kind of even what Kaiten and I were saying in the last race, that is just starting to figure things out. I thought that her first race, it was almost like she just pulled away so impressively at Tampa. Not too much of a surprise to see a first-time starter for Christophe Clement in the turf win first out at Tampa. But I thought that she really backed that up behind Beautiful Lover last time out, who was a very good, very big, talented filly for Chad Brown. So that was kind of what I was going off of with her, and thinking that maybe she's going to be a better price with the 2 Chads in there.
For sure. And what I also liked about her in this race in particular is Joelle Rosario is now on her, and at least watching her last race where she stepped up against much tougher company, she looks like a filly that really needs to be asked and really needs a strong finisher on her back, to get her to pass horses, and that's exactly what Joelle Rosario is. You can't find a stronger finisher coming down the stretch than Joelle Rosario, so I think that kind of complements her.
Absolutely. And before we move off of this race, we do have the 2 Chads. They actually worked in company, Nova Soul and Dog Tag. This is one of their recent works from April 14th. Nova Soul outside, Dog Tag the Gray inside, getting a bit warm. This is courtesy of XBTV. What was your impression of this work?
It's good. Chad Brown, usually he'll put these types of fillies in company. You can see the outside horse, who is Nova Soul. She's just kind of, under not a hand ride, but she's pretty much wrapped up, and you see the rider on the inside filly. It looks like that they were good workmates. You didn't see one out competing the other. It's a different scenario, in the afternoon, especially considering that Nova Soul is making her stateside debut. We see this time and time and time again. Sometimes they're a little bit slow out of the gate, whereas, Dog Tag, she has experience, and she's got good experience. So I definitely give Dog Tag the preference out of the 2.
And I think it's important to note with Chad Brown's workers, he does equip his riders with radios, and he will typically be telling them throughout the work. It's pretty standard to hear him say, stay together, stay together, stay together. So that ultimately is kind of the most important thing, and that's pretty much what they did. So I thought it was a solid work for both fillies.
Definitely. Looks like he, once again, has a strong hand in here. We'll try to get a little bit of prices. Ashley and Kaiten both on the number 2, Nova Soul, the German bred, who, if there is any slight cut in the ground, she should have no problem with that as well. We turn the page now, and we'll all chime in for this one, the Grade 3 Pimlico Special, to be run at 1.25 miles now. We were looking it up to see the last time 1.25 miles race was run on the main track at Pimlico, and we found it was an off-the-turf race. So it's been a while that we've seen this distance, and this race is so historic for sure. We'll bring up the replay of the number 13, You're to Blame, as we do have a couple of us that did land on this horse. Gabby, maybe you can kick it off with You're to Blame, and here's his replay from Gulfstream.
Yeah, this was his race last time out. We hadn't seen him since September prior to this performance, but to me, this is a horse that's really starting to get good. I mean, in the latter half of his 4-year-old season, I thought he really started to progress nicely, and then he came back in this effort, and it was a game performance. I mean, he got a good ride, there's no doubt. He was definitely the class of the field, having gone against stakes competition and graded stakes competition before in the past. But I just like kind of the upward trajectory that he has. He's just, like I said, he's steadily improving as an older horse. And I also think he's steadily improving as one of these niche horses that likes to go these kind of marathon distances. So I prefer him, but hats off to the stakes coordinator, Coley Blind, and every single person who's working in the Secretary's office, because this is an incredible race. I think Flame Away, you could make a case for, Tenfold, Just Whistle, Cord Maker. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I even think Carlino's probably the horse to beat in this race. We just haven't seen him since the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Before we move on, just Whistle, he's my long shot in here. I'm gonna be using him in second. I'll probably maybe even put a win bet on him just because he's a plotter, and I think a 1.25 miles is going to be the perfect distance for him. He didn't close in his race 2 back. The pace completely collapsed in his favor. He's just kind of a one-paced stayer, and I think his running style really suits this distance today.
1.25 miles, not a distance we really see, again, too much here. Plotters sometimes get it done, and you really can make a case for so many. Ashley, you like You're to Blame as well, but tell us about some of the horses you used underneath.
So 2 of my price horses would be the 6, Cord Maker, and the 9, Unbridled One. They faced each other in the past. What I like about Cord Maker, 4-year-old son of Curlin, should definitely get the distance here today. And before the General George, I didn't think the 7 furlong distance was good for him. I thought he needed to go longer. He raced an okay race in there, went very wide. Then they stretched him out. He gets the win done, and then they shortened him up. So they're kind of playing a little game with him. I think he'll get the distance perfectly. Morning line, I liked the price. I really don't think we'll get that because I know a lot of us really like this horse today. And then just quickly, Unbridled One. I don't think he was himself in the Charlestown Classic. He never looked comfortable. The local horse, Running to Love Ya, put on a show for everyone. And I think getting back to here in Pimlico, he'll like the surface. He was second last year in the Dixie.
Ashley and I are either going to have a really good day or a really disappointing day and regroup for the next. I went with Cord Maker as well. And I think the pedigree is a custom suit for this distance. I just love it. And I like the fact that he's coming off those big wins, especially that last, albeit against much easier company, but still, it's the way he did it. I think those are really key when you're going to test the deep waters, that you come in off of a confidence builder like that. And I did like the fact that he was able to win at Stakes Company when he tried 1 1/8 miles for the first time. I just think this is a tenacious type of racehorse that kind of rises to the occasion. He is not going to be on the lead, but he is going to be closer to the pace because of the stretch out here, and ideally positioned in the gate as well. So I'm excited to see him. And when Gabby and I walked in this morning, we ran into some people who said that Rodney Jenkins was more nervous about this horse than he had been about anybody in a long, long time. So I
usually a good sign.
Yes.
Would love to see a big performance from Cord Maker and kind of part of the home team as well to win a big race like the Pimlico Special that's so historic. I used Rally Cry. That's a horse that I don't think is going to get much play or much talk, and I think he's a price. He's a quality horse. Inside, we're going to find out early on whether that's an okay place to be, but certainly if you're going 1.25 miles, it's not bad to be able to save some ground. He also has speed. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the lead or close to it. He's not a need-the-lead type, but he's just naturally pretty quick out of the gate. And second start off the layoff, I think he used the Charlestown Classic as a stepping stone, a race that he probably needed to get back to full conditioning. So I think he's sitting on a huge effort. And then I also like You're to Blame. I think very solid horse, very logical, makes a lot of sense. When you look at a horse's lifetime record and they've been first or second in more than half their starts and they've been running against really good horses, that's saying something about their ability. Yeah. So You're to Blame has to be used on tickets.
Absolutely does. And I think Tim and Stan have Cordmaker on top too. So poor Cordmaker has a lot of weight to carry today, but I know we'll all be rooting for him. My goofy price play underneath was the 3 Flying the Flag. I think that this is a horse that's really going to appreciate the stretch out and distance. He's going to be a big price. I'm trying to use him with some of the others that might take attention, but as Gabby said, big hats off. The Pimlico Special is always such a prestigious race, and this year is no different, and a great betting race as well. As we have just under 10 minutes to go, so we'll turn the page to the Grade 2 Black Eyed Susan, a mile and an eighth on the main track, our co-feature this afternoon for the 3-year-old fillies. And we do have I think that this is going to be a very another wide open race. This starts the late pick for $300,000 guaranteed, 11 to 14 here. And let's kick it off with the replay that we have of Always Shopping. We just talked about Todd Pletcher. He comes right back in here. Always Shopping won the Gazelle last time out, a Grade 2 event at Aqueduct, Gabby.
Yeah, and she off topic comes out of this race too. The pair finds himself going against each other once again this afternoon. Off topic, she seemingly was under a hard hand ride from the half-mile pole onward. I mean, she definitely gave Johnny Velasquez a workout that day. So I don't know if she really seemed comfortable. Another thing is, I don't really know if she can turn the tables on a horse like Always Shopping. In general, Acacia, I guess my strongest opinion in this race is to play against the runners coming out of the Gazelle. I just didn't think it was as good of a race as, say, the Fantasy or the Gulfstream Park Oaks. I even think some of the local races or the allowance races at Keeneland, you could argue were stronger than the Grade 2 Gazelle. So that was really just my approach of that particular race.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Gabby taking a stand against Always Shopping. Ashley, you use her as well as point of honor. Gabby alluded to the Gulfstream Park Oaks. This looks like a pretty up-and-coming filly.
Yeah, she's only got 3 starts under her belt. Last time out, she was a little wide and she kind of flattened in the stretch, but she was only beaten by 2 and finished 4th. Javier Castellano's back aboard. The horse, I like at this price too, 5-2 even. I do think she might float up depending what happens with Always Shopping.
I like it Always Shopping. I agree with Gabby about the class and the caliber, but she won it. That was what was important to me. I don't know that I would use the horses that finished behind her, but I think she's an improving filly. And I also think for the mile and an eighth, she's not one that has a rapid acceleration, but she does kind of grind it out, and to me is the type that's only getting good when you're hitting the mile and an eighth distances. So I kind of like that fact about her. She's not going to be sitting too far off the pace, though, so she can still be in line to make a nice move through the stretch. And I've been very impressed with Manny Franco, especially of late. I just think he's such a strong and talented rider that he's going to be in that next wave of riders that we're all talking about every year at the end of the year for honors. Always Shopping, I think, has a little advantage tactically on some of the others who are going to be closing late and who are very good. Brill, I would like a lot. If this were a mile and a 16th, I think I would feel a bit more comfortable picking her on top. I'm just not sure that this is her best distance, but she's certainly a quality filly. And Lady Apple finished 3rd in the Kentucky Oaks, so she kind of flatters Brill's running line. She was beaten only a length and a quarter for all of it by Lady Apple in the Fantasy. She doesn't need any one racetrack. She ran very well in California behind Bellafina. I wish Bellafina had fared a little better in the Oaks. I think that would add to Brill's case, but definitely include Brill in there. And then the 8 point of honor, it's kind of the buzz horse. I think everybody I've just been hearing a lot of point of honor. I think she may be bet down a little lower than she probably should be, but I've seen nice progression from her. I was a little disappointed in a race in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, but to be fair, this is when you're going to see a lot of development from a horse.
I was too, originally when I watched the race, and then I went back and rewatched the race a couple of times. And she was really headstrong and rank going into the first
very
turn.
keyed up before the race.
And it just looked like Javier could never get her to settle. And then she had kind of expended too much energy in the first half of the race. And then I was surprised that he went down inside with her instead of kind of keeping her in the clear and see if she could get her feet underneath of her and find a little bit more momentum. So I wouldn't say she had a troubled trip. I just thought it was a kind of an awkward trip and a difficult trip considering her running style. So I'm not as unhappy with the race as I was when I originally watched it, and that's why I picked her on top.
And that's a fair point. She does wear earplugs. I remember I looked back at my notes from the Gulfstream Park Oaks, and she was just very much distracted and all over the place. And it's probably a maturity thing as well. And she did walk up with a training saddle on. They just seemed like they were doing kind of everything to keep her settled before the race, and I don't know if it exactly worked. But hopefully she's going to come in even a little bit stronger. Very quickly, we have to give a little pop to Las Cetas for Katie Voss, who did win the win and you're in for this race in the Weber City Miss.
I went to Laurel and I saw this filly the other day. She trained, I think, at like 10 o'clock. And Katie was on her pony, watched this filly train. And when I saw her in the shed row, I'm like, oh, yeah, she's a nice looking filly. And then I saw her out on the track. And I was like, whoa, she is a very nice looking filly. She just loves training. She just looks so proud of herself out there. And she's massive, too. She's huge. Katie was telling me a story. She has another horse named Corvus who is big. I mean, he's wide, he's tall, and they had to order a girth, like a specialized girth, because for him, and they wound up having to use it on her because she's so big. No other girth in the barn will fit. They can't put the saddle on her. So she's very talented, and I gave her respect. I put her in fourth. This is obviously just a really tough spot for her, but we'll see.
It is. So that is the Black Eyed Susan. We're kind of in agreement, maybe a little bit all over the place. Gabby taking the stand against, but very excited about this race. Of course, we do have 2 stakes after the Black Eyed Susan. Race number 12 is 5 furlongs on the turf. It's the Jim McKay Turf Sprint. Unfortunately, this race was really impacted by the scratches. Bound for Nowhere is out, New York's Finest is out, and Pure Sensation is out. Gabby, just give us a quick rundown of this race.
And Bound for Nowhere, heading to Royal Ascot, actually, so scratching out of this spot. And then the 8, Pure Sensation, Christophe Clement wanting really firm ground and him saying that he didn't get that today, so scratching out of this. I thought it completely changes the race, even with New York Finest out. Tricks to Do and Completed Pass both come out of the same race, but I'm going to give the slight edge to Tricks to Do. I know he was defeated by Completed Pass, but I didn't think there was any hope with this horse with the post position that he broke from. He's a horse that needs to be forwardly placed. There were just faster sprinters to his outside. He was in 13 of 13, and by the time the gates opened, he was just kind of on the chase, and that can't happen when you're in a 5.5 turf sprint. So on top of that, he didn't really have the opportunity to close. He doesn't seem like a closer. So with the inside post, I think they're going to get aggressive, get him up in the bridle. I used him on top. I used him on top. I think, I picked Bound for Nowhere. But I think he's got a big shot. But unfortunately, he's going to be a heavy favorite now.
It's interesting as I look at the picks in general. I think even with the scratches and even with the compact nature of the field, we are coming up with different horses on top for the most part. And I think that makes it and amplifies the fact that it can be a very good and tricky race from a handicapping and betting standpoint. Completed Pass, I just felt with the scratches might make the lead and have a really easy time of it. And even if he doesn't, he's a fighter. So I think he may be the fastest horse, but I also think even if he doesn't get the lead, he's got the best opportunity to get the best trip.
All right, so we will see what happens there. Trip certainly going to be paramount. We do turn the page to race number 13, a mile and an eighth for the Hilaire Dupont Distaff, grade 3 event for the fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upward. Ashley's going to take us through this race, and we'll kick it off with the replay with My Miss Lily and Another Broad, who knocked heads last time out, Ashley.
I liked the stretch run on this race in the Top Flight Invitational. Another Broad ends up winning the race, and she goes in between some of her runners, and she kind of seems like a polite horse that takes a little bit of aggressive ride to really lengthen her stretch. She just doesn't seem in a hurry, and once she passes the Frost Annie, who set the pace in there, she does clear the field. Watching the replay, I've watched this one a bunch of times. I don't know what to make out of My Miss Lily. Originally, I liked her. I've gone back and forth. So I've actually left her off of my top 4, I turned to the 6 Golden Award as well for Bill Mott. The horse, I was very disappointed in the Double Dog Dare, the performance. I don't know if it was the dirt at Keeneland or the off track. I didn't know what to make out of the race, but prior to that, had a 3-race win streak. And I didn't also like the price at 5-2. I wanted to go for a little bit more value. And then I turned to the 4. This is My Lady Curlin. Was impressive, I thought, at Keeneland on the 25th of April, winning an optional claiming event. And I thought the price at 4-1, Brad Cox has a lot of horses here right now, and they all seem to be training very well, and I did like the price.
All right, maybe some prices there. That is the Distaff in race number 13. We're all kind of on similar horses, Caton taking the 2, My Miss Lily. And we do have one more race still to go, race 14, a mile on the turf at Maiden Claiming. Caton, take it away and wrap it up for us, if you will.
This last race is Maiden Claiming toughest category, I think, in the world to come up with. I like the 2. She's like the wind. I kind of go with an every other type of a format with her. She kind of threw in a dud last time in race Rest off the grass, so she's due for a better race, in my opinion. She also has shown some decent turf form going back against a little tougher competition, and she has some tactical speed. But this one you could make a case for any of about 4 or 5 horses in the race. I also used the 6. I thought Go Amanda was very consistent and the type of horse that just wouldn't shock me if she jumps in there and wins, even though she might not be the best horse. I like the pedigree for the turf. I think she can improve quite a bit here. So if her dirt form carries over or improves, I think she could be a price.
We'll see if we could get some prices for you in the last race and hopefully throughout the day. Ladies, thank you so much. That does wrap it up. Hopefully we gave you some helpful information this afternoon. Stick with us. Track announcer Dave Rodman will be coming on for scratches and changes, and we'll pick it up again. Our first post is 11:30 today. Thanks again for joining us, and good luck. Happy Black Eyed Susan Day, everybody.